Hello and welcome back to the Circuito do Estoril, just a stone's throw away outside of the Portuguese capital of Lisbon, a racetrack steeped in history. And ever since 2017, the JuniorGP paddock have been coming back to this 4.182 kilometre layout, 2.5 miles, 13 turns, 9 of them right, 4 of them left. And it is a spectacular venue to come racing in the JuniorGP paddock. Of course, Moto2 came here a few years ago. It used to be the home of the Portuguese Grand Prix. We've seen winners here like Valentino Rossi, Jorge Lorenzo, Marc Marquez, Casey Stoner. All of the greats have won here in the past, and now it's time for the riders in the JuniorGP paddock to try and etch their names into the history books here at this classic venue in Portugal. I'd love to say that the weather is bright sunshine, but as you can see, it's not. Ever since we got here, it's been miserable, to put it politely. Little bit of dry spell yesterday morning, for practice, and then the heavens open around lunchtime, and it's pretty much not stopped since. However, contrasting conditions over at the Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli, and this is what happened in Moto2 last time out. Alberto Surra on the number 67 Bosco machine started from pole position, got the whole shot, and then didn't relinquish the race lead. The number 31 of Roberto Garcia kept tabs on him throughout the race as a battle for third raged on. The final podium spot, Mattia Casadei on the number 40, Mongiardo on the 49, and Ferrandez on the 54. These were in the last couple of laps. Ferrandez and Casadei catching Mongiardo. This is how it finished at the front though. Surra just holding on to the race win ahead of Garcia, the number 31, as I say, kept him honest throughout the race, but couldn't quite put a pass in as Alberto Surra claimed his first win in the Moto2 European Championship to kickstart his season in perfect fashion. Pole position and a race win for the Italian on home soil. However, as I say, contrasting conditions here in Portugal for round 2 a couple of weeks later. Unfortunately, next week it's going to be bright sunshine, mid to late 20s. We've got to deal with late teens and wet weather, unfortunately, on Sunday race day. We're focusing in on Mattia Casadei here in Moto2, the first of 2 races, because this is your pole sitter, the number 40, of course, the reigning Moto2 world champion. And this is what he had to say after qualifying.
The session was a little bit difficult because it's the first session with the rain tire and the wet condition. The bike at the beginning was a little bit hard to ride. Lap by lap my feeling was a little improving, and I want to say thanks to the team for this, and I'm very happy with that. We are not at 100%, but we work for come to the top, and we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Those were the thoughts then of Mattia Casadei after qualifying yesterday. A 1:56.441 was the Italian's time, and it was 1.7 seconds quicker than anyone else. As I said, the morning sessions where they have their final practice to decide Q1 and Q2 here in the JuniorGP paddock was dry, and then the rain started to fall in the afternoon. So they have experienced conditions similar to this yesterday's, which is good ahead of the race to get them sort of bedded in and expecting similar conditions, get used to the conditions ahead of race day here in the JuniorGP paddock. And this is his teammate Alberto Surra, who we'll chat about in due course, because it wasn't the Saturday he would have been expecting. Chris Jordan alongside me if you're just joining us, Elliot York as well, and myself. Chris, looking forward to this one. We've just had an ETC race where we didn't have the battles we would have hoped for and expected, but hopefully these can come in race 1 of 2 here in the Moto2 European Championship. But an exciting grid, A little bit of a topsy-turvy grid, some might say. A few surprises. As we mentioned, we'll come to it shortly. Alberto Sura not having the day he would have wanted, but excited for this. It was a good weekend last time out in Misano for the Moto2 European Championship, guys.
Yeah, 2 absolutely cracking races in Misano last time out, and I'd be a little bit hopeful of something similar here because we do have some big names in this class. Those of you who follow the MotoGP, Moto2 World Championship over the last couple of years will recognise the likes of Mattia Casadei, Moto2 World Champion, Jorge Navarro, launching from P4 on the grid. He's got multiple podiums. Kaito Toba. A little further down, Alberto Sura, Harrison Voigt. They'll be looking to charge from deeper on the grid. So, as you mentioned, it's a topsy-turvy grid, but that generally leads to maybe a little bit more of an exciting race to see what some of those guys deeper on the grid can do. And if they can catch the likes of Casadei, Takahata, or Edu Montero, who are your front row. And as you mentioned, yeah, conditions far from ideal. The ETC race, not to give too much away, but the conditions certainly played their part in that. And I'd be a little bit hopeful, bigger machinery here, riders who are a little bit more experienced might be able to navigate this a little bit better. So we might still yet see some quality racing here in Estoril.
Certainly are. This is the number 98 of Shannon Inter on the Ford EEST Racing machine. He's propping up the rear of the grid in P18. And just ahead of him on the grids, potentially not going to get to him, he's all the way down in P17, is Alberto Sura. And only a couple of places ahead of me on the grid in P15 is Roberto Garcia. So from the top 2 from Misano, way down the order in P15 and P17 respectively. If you're just joining us, we had this at the start of the show in ETC, but due to weather conditions, all races today will be reduced to 2/3 race distance of the original distance. That's because of the weather conditions, of course, that we're expecting to hang around for most of the day. So the Moto2 European Championship was scheduled to be 17 laps, and now it's only going to be 11 laps. So it's going to make it a little bit more interesting. Of course, the riders aren't going to have too much time, or as much time as they potentially would have wanted to bed themselves into the race. They've got to, if they've got podium aspirations and win aspirations, as Casadei does, of course, then they're going to have to get down to business pretty quickly. As you rightly say, Chris, these riders are more experienced in these weather conditions, potentially not necessarily on these types of machines. It's going to see who deals with the conditions quickest and early doors. They've obviously just seen the European Talent Cup race unfold, so they've probably learned a few things there where they've seen the track potentially a little bit wetter or a little bit more grip and less grip. So this is going to be interesting. But yeah, Casadei, starting from pole position, was on the front row over in Misano, but ended up finishing the race just off the podium in P4, was pipped to the post by Alberto Ferrandez. So Mattia Casadei searching for his first podium in the Moto2 European Championship. As I said, the Moto2 World Champion from last year, and after their opening round, he's leading the championship again with a couple of podiums in Portimao. And of course, the Moto2 riders will be back in action at the French Grand Prix next weekend at Le Mans. So Casadei, a name I'm sure you're familiar with, and you're going to get more familiar with him in the Moto2 European Championship this year.
The number 23 there in the center of your screens then as well. Takahata lines up alongside our pole man, Mattia Casadei, the Japanese rider. He's hugely experienced. Picked up a P9 out in Misano, just the one race in Misano last time out for this class. It's his best grid position in the class. Previous best came here in Estoril. And do you know what year it was, Elias? 2021, P5. So it's been a few years since we've seen Hada at this level, but he is a rider of quality here. He does have a podium as well when it was the CEV Moto2 time. His personal best result came in Aragon, a P3. Number 21 then, closing out the front rows, Edu Montero. 22 previous starts in Moto2. His best result, a P9 with his P3 grid start, his best qualifying.
Yeah, P9 for Eduardo Montero here in Estoril as well. So it goes well around this circuit. And starting from the front row, he'll be hoping he can pick up a PB result just like a few of these riders are. So not the front row of the grid we were potentially expecting. Tiger Harder experienced in this class, 22 starts. Mattia Casadei just getting his journey up and running. But talking of experience, Jorge Navarro running the number 11 here on the forwards racing machine. Jorge Navarro, of course, a name familiar with most of you, I'm sure, was in the World Supersport Championship last year, had a podium over there in his debut in that class in the World SBK paddock, the P3 in Portimao. 106 starts Jorge Navarro has in the Moto2 World Championship, 10 podiums, 4 poles, but never quite clinched a race victory in the Moto2 World Championship. So he'll be hoping he can at least stand on the podium here in Estoril. He did 5 seasons back in JuniorGP, way back from 2010 to 2014, of course. Jorge Navarro, a vastly experienced rider, racing in the European Moto2 Championship. So a good field for him to join, and a good rider, for riders like Alberto Ferrandez to look at and try and learn from.
Yeah, it's Navarro's debut as well. He missed the opening round in Misano due to the World Supersport Championship. But Alberto Ferrandez, yeah, he's a rider with some experience here in this level. Podium last time out. He's a graduate from the European Talent Cup podium program, I should say. And he's got podiums in every season, including in Estoril 2020 in the ETC campaign. He stepped up to Moto2 last season, had a very strong end of season, P5 best result in Aragon. And then his podium in Misano was his personal best result. P16 on the grid is the number 67, the championship leader. That is Alberto Sura, another rider of vast experience in this class. We've seen him, of course, on the World Championship stage a few times, but he enters this season as one of the favourites. Last season it was all about Senna Aegis and Xavi Cardolus. Alberto Sura was one of those riders who managed to keep pace with them a couple of times. So your starting grid for race 1 here is Mattia Casadei on pole with Taiga Hada and Edu Montero closing out the front row. Then it is Navarro, Ferrandez and Fernandez. Third row is Mattia Rato, Lorenzo Ferlon and home hero Ivo Lopez in P9. Kaito Toba, Unai Oredre and Mongiardo are on row 4. Jacobo Hostruk, Joan Gimbert and Roberto Garcia. Roberto Garcia is a contender to come from deep, as are Sura and Harrison Voigt. Munoz, Volpi, Aubry are on row 7 with row 8, one rider, and that is Di Vittori.
The warm-up lap to come then, an important warm-up lap, of course, and then we'll be racing here for race 1 of 2 in the Moto2 European Championship. 11 laps, reduced race distance, to focus in on the eyes of the pole sitter Mattia Casadei. Full focus from the Italian. He'll be wanting a race victory. He'll be wanting at least a podium. Tricky conditions, of course, so if he's standing on the podium, that's a job well done. But he's going to have plenty of composition for that. Went down to Parc Ferme for the European Talent Cup race winners interview, and it was raining, and then when I returned, it wasn't raining. So conditions changing minute by minute here. It doesn't look like it's raining at this moment in time. Chris is going to hang his head out the window to see what the conditions are, but it doesn't look like it's raining for now. Can you confirm, Chris?
No, it is not, and I have some breaking news. It looks like a little bit of sun has actually broken through the clouds, but I'm not going to promise anything. It was just a quick little look, but it certainly looks more light than it has been all day, indeed all weekend.
Yeah, we'll keep that on the download to not try and tempt fate. Hopefully the sun does come out for this afternoon and conditions do dry up. You can see the riders taking it really, really slowly around this warm-up lap, trying to get as much heat into the tyres as possible and work out where they can push and where they potentially might need to just take it a little bit steady on the opening laps as we come down into turn 6. A big race coming up, race 1 of 2. There's Sura and Jorge Navarro. Sura, plenty of work to do if he's going to keep his championship lead after this round. There's just confirmation of the conditions. Foggy and rainy and misty. Not very warm, a bit of a breeze as well. Hopefully it pushes those clouds away. I can see what you mean, Chris. The sun is trying to burst through, but it's not quite having the desired effect at this moment in time. But conditions do look better than they did about half an hour ago, which is positive news, of course. But we're going to get racing underway for Moto2 very shortly indeed. It's going to be an intriguing one. It's going to be interesting to see who pushes at the start of the race and who maybe comes into it. We saw in the ETC race that riders who potentially didn't have the best of starts, then started to find their form and found their way into the rhythm. Confirmation of your championship standings after Misano. It's as you were, of course, only one race over in Italy. Sura leading from Garcia. Ferrandis in third, his first podium. Can he add to that here in Portugal?
Casadei rolls up then across the grid to take his spot. P1 on the grid. Absolutely brilliant opportunity. P4, as we mentioned last time out in Misano, so it's a great opportunity for Casadei to show what he's worth and that he is a true championship contender. P4, only one race, so he's P4 in the championship as well, naturally. But this is a massive, massive chance for him to see what he can do in the wet. Very excited to see Jorge Navarro back on Moto2 machinery as well. The absolute sound of them as they roll by this commentary box here as well. Absolute delight to hear. But we're all set to go for lights out.
We certainly are. The green flag waves in the background. Revs will be up, the green lights will be on, the red lights will be on, and then where we go off, we are racing, and it's a great launch from Tiger Harder from the middle of the front row. He got the front end bouncing, but he's got the drive from P2, and it looks like he's going to get the whole shot, the number 23, down into turn one. Casadei didn't get a too bad start, not as good as Tiger Harder. He's going to settle into second place. It's the number 4 of Fernandez, who slots into third place, tentatively round the first corner. Casadei looking up the inside at turn 2 on Tiger Harder, but it is the Japanese rider who leads from the off.
Yeah, that start almost looked too good to be true from Hada, but Casadei has closed that gap almost immediately, and here he goes right up the inside. Will he take the lead back off the Japanese rider? Hada takes a different line. Is he going to push it wide here? Well, Casadei goes around the outside, but Hada holds on as they come through turn 4. Drive through onto the back straight to kink through 5. Opportunity maybe to get in slipstream and put something going into turn 6. Eric Fernandez got the ideal start as well from P6. He went to P3, but he's after losing that position now to Montero, the number 21. So round the left-hander we go. It's Hada leading from Casadei with Montero. Oh, that was a close one. Montero in third ahead of Eric Fernandez.
Yeah, it's so easy to make a mistake in these conditions. You can see how slowly they're riding around this racetrack, just trying to work out where they can push Tiger Harder out of the seat there on the exit of the interior parabolic at turn 6. Now we're coming up to turns 8, 9 and 10, the really technical section before it opens back up towards the end of the lap. Tiger Harder leading the way. He's got a freight train forming behind him. The number 23s. They all make it there safely. I was about to say safely, but the 75 of Lopez, the Portuguese rider, a great start from P9 from Lopez. He's searching for another race win here on home turf, just as he did a few years ago in this class, the number 75. So waving the Portuguese flag in the Moto2 European Championship this weekend is Lopez, the reigning Spanish Superbike champion. But as we complete the first lap, it is going to be Tiger Harder leading the way just from Casadei. Casadei gets a good run out of that final corner. It's a long run to the finish line as Casadei pulls out of the slipstream, heading on to lap 2. The number 40 just on the outside is going to lead the race for the first time from pole position.
Yeah, greatly timed there from Casadei. Just pulled out onto the outside slipstream, got late on the brakes. Tiger had a little response and little he could do. It looks like Eric Fernandez is about to pick him off now as well. This 2023 stock runner-up. He lost out to Daniel Munoz in that championship fight, but Munoz is nowhere to be seen in this race. He's further down outside the points, I think, at the moment. But Eric Fernandez, his adaptation to this class has been going very well. At the moment, just being held off though by Tiger Hada, but it seems a matter of time. It seems Hada may not quite have the pace of Fernandez. He certainly doesn't have it of Casadei. Casadei's after pulling the pin already. He's half a second out in front, having just taken the lead a few corners ago. Hada pulls a defensive line as Fernandez looked to show him a wheel. Then behind them it's Montero, Ivo Lopez, Jorge Navarro. Navarro just sitting pretty in 6th position, probably just getting a feel for the circuit before trying anything too risky here in difficult conditions in Estoril. And here comes Fernandez. He has taken pinched P2 off of Hada. Looked like Hada might try something back up the inside, but Fernandez has indeed held on to it, and now it's a freight train of riders behind Tiger Hada.
Yeah, Harder going the wrong way here after leading the opening lap. We can see Casadei putting the pin here nice and early. Casadei clearly feeling comfortable. Who's that down in the background? Is that Lopez, the Portuguese rider? I think it might be. He had a little bit of a moment there, didn't he, on the opening lap? Just trying to figure out who that is. Is it Lopez?
It isn't. It is Harrison Wood, I think.
try and work out when we get the number, but a slip off there then. Down at turn 9, the Gancho corner here in Estoril, trying desperately to get the bike restarted. Disappointment there early doors. It's not Lopez, so sorry to the Portuguese fans who might be watching. Don't worry, Lopez is still in the race. As we come over the line, Lopez is in 4th place on the number 75 machine. Yeah, so completely difficult. So that was my mistake. Tygard just in 3rd place. It looks like it was Montero who's gone down on the PS Racing machine, the number 21. So unfortunate stuff there from Montero. Had a good start as Lopez then dives up the inside of Tiger Harder with 9 laps to go. Ivo Lopez is into the podium positions, but not for long. Tiger Harder bites back. The 75 Lopez just running it slightly wide on the exit of turn 2. Got onto the curbs a little bit. And in these conditions, when you're on the curbs, you need to be extra cautious. It's pretty slippy on the paintwork in these conditions. As Cassidy, as you can see, sets the fastest lap of the race, and Lopez, a high side, he's down.
Lopez is down this time. He apologizes to Navarro too as he drives by. Navarro takes evasive action. That is devastating for the home fans. Lopez looked like he was on for podium. I was just about to say, Hada did not have the pace of the riders behind him, and now he's been granted P3 and a hell of a lot of space as Navarro gets caught up in that crash as well. So Ivo Lopez is out. Will he rejoin? We'll wait and see. But Tiger Hada now comfortably in 3rd place. Jorge Navarro losing a massive chunk of time in that incident. Just a little bit of a note, some of the riders have charged hard. Alberto Sura is up to 6th, just ahead of Roberto Garcia. They were starting from the 5th and 6th rows. While we've also mentioned we've lost Harrison Voigt, Charles Aubry, and now Ivo Lopez is the latest rider to go down.
Yeah, just a replay of Lopez's crash at turn 4. You can see carrying little to no pace whatsoever through that turn 4, trying to get up the inside of Tiger Harder, and obviously the rear end just let go in these conditions as he tried to open the throttle just a little bit. Good for Lopez that he's okay. A nasty one. Confirmation of Eduardo Montero's crash. But that has left a gap in the podium places. Obviously, Jorge Navarro caught him in that incident through no fault of his own, the Spaniards. As Cassidy then completes another lap at the front. 1.3 seconds to Fernandez. He's keeping it honest, is Fernandez, on the foul 55 Tay Racing machine, the number 4. So Cassidy isn't having this all his own way. Did set the fastest lap in the race, a 158.4 compared to a 159.1 for Fernandez. So Cassidy, as we sort of expected after qualifying yesterday, Chris. Here's a replay of Montero's crash as we saw a couple of laps ago, just hanging it around the outsides, trail breaking it into the corner, and the front end just says no more, unfortunately for Montero, and he slips out of contention. Was potentially just a little bit off the racing line, carrying a wider line with Lopez just up the inside of him. Good to see that Montero's all okay though. He's got another race to go this afternoon to try and repair the damage of race 1. But as you can see, this is your top 3 split pretty much by the back straight. So Cassidy leading by a couple of seconds, and in turn Fernandez has 4 seconds on Tiger Harder.
Yeah, Cassidy has really pulled the pin here. As you can see, the fastest lap of the race was just set by the Italian. A 158.498 has given him near 2 seconds over Eric Fernandez. Well, it looked like Fernandez had the pace to go with him, but Cassidy has responded. You have to remember, he is a world champion after all. He is a Moto2 world champion. Mattia Cassidy is here in the Moto2 European Championship now, and he looks to add to his medal collection. Eric Fernandez, his adaptation so far in the Moto2 European Championship has been going well. He was runner-up last year to Danny Munoz in the Stock Championship, but a P8 in Misano was a positive result to build on, and now he's all set for a podium here. He's got a country mile of space to Tiger Hada behind him. Tiger Hada, we were mentioning, didn't quite have the pace to go with the top guys. That incident for Ivo Lopez, though, has gifted him P3. But as you can see, Jorge Navarro isn't a million miles away from the Japanese rider. So it'll be interesting to see, with what, 7 laps to go, there's still plenty of time, about 14-15 minutes more of racing to see if Navarro can close the gap to Tiger Hada.
Yeah, and on that last lap, Jorge Navarro was a second quicker than Tiger Hada, so the podium battle is really hotting up. And as you can see in the rear end of your picture, Alberto Sura and Roberto Garcia are locked together in P5 and P6. They started from way down the order, remember. after a really tricky qualifying session yesterday. Both suffered crashes and weren't able to get respectable lap times in to get them up at the front end of the grid. You can see there on the inside of turn 4, the aftermath of where Ivo Lopez went down. His bike still parked up on the inside of the curb. But this is where we pick up your former championship leader, as things stand, Alberto Soro. Roberto Garcia doing all he can to stick with the 67, and they're not quite lapping as quickly as Jorge Navarro is in front of him. Navarro, third fastest rider on track after this man, Mateo Casadei, into the 57s. Fernandez is in the 58s, but Tiger Harder, he needs to up his pace a little bit to try and hold on to that final podium place. That's where the battle is going to come from at this moment in time, but Casadei is really laying down the laps. He's into his rhythm now. Obviously took his time on lap 1 to get past Tiger Harder, but once he got past Tiger Harder down into turn 1 at the beginning of lap 2, he's not looked back, and with 6 laps to go when we cross the line, it's looking like his race to lose. We'll get the gap across the line. It was 3.5 seconds. It's growing ever so slightly. It's going to be up to 4 seconds in a matter of time.
Yeah, an absolute masterclass here from Casadei as he pushes his Team Giatti Bosco Oscuro machine to the limit here in the wet conditions. It's a good time to be a Bosco Oscuro rider if you're keeping tracks of not just the Moto2 European Championship, but also the Moto2 World Championship. A couple of top talents aboard Bosco Oscuro machinery now these days, including, I think, our Spanish GP race winner Fermin Aldeguer, MotoGP bound. So good machinery to be on. It's certainly performing well recently. A lot of race wins in the intermediate class. So 156.864 that time around from Mattia Casadei, still comfortably quicker than anybody else on circuit. Eric Fernandez last lap, that was a 158.487, so over a second in his pocket for the Italian as he continues to grow his lead.
Yeah, really classy stuff this from Casadei. We mentioned in qualifying that he was nearly 2 seconds quicker than anyone else. We thought it might have been a little bit of a fluke, not in terms of Casadei's pace, but in terms of everyone else just not getting down to, or up to speed, I should say, in the conditions as quickly. But as you can see from this race, Casadei is in absolute league of his own. A 156.8 last time around. The pace is getting quicker and quicker, and you can see Chris was right. The sun is starting to shine at the top end of the circuit over at turn 1, and dare I say dry lines are starting to appear at some areas of the track down into turn 6 on the back straight. I'm pretty sure I saw a couple of dry areas. A long way to, of course, before this track dries up. It's not going to dry up enough for slicks in this race, of course, but one to watch throughout the rest of the day as well. But Casadei rounds the Ayrton Senna Parabolica turn 13. We saw a couple of riders go down there yesterday in Moto2 qualifying. Corner that just lasts forever on the right hand side of the tyre before the near kilometre long back straight. The team just giving him the pit ball plus 5 seconds back to Eric Fernandez, who's doing a good job to not keep tabs with Casadei, but to keep Tiger Harder behind him. It's going to be interesting to see what the gap is over line, Chris, between Harder and Jorge Navarro. Navarro clearly closing in on the number 11 machine. A
157 that time around from Casadei. He's dropped back into the 157s. Shame on him, really. But he is still comfortably quicker than everyone else, particularly Eric Fernandez. A 159.217 from Fernandez. So between Hada and Navarro, there's not a whole lot between them. As we can see on screen, Navarro is gaining 5 laps to go. This looks like it might just be a matter of time. Navarro, with that wealth of Moto2 experience, is going to use it all right now. How many Moto2 starts did you say it was? 122. He's going to need all that experience now in this wet weather conditions, as he has. Maybe will he have a little look up the inside here? Not quite yet. The 11 just biding his time, but he's looking very much on for a podium. Last time out he was, what, nearly a second, 9/10 quicker than Hada. So with 5 laps to go, you would imagine that it is just a matter of when rather than if.
Yeah, catching is one thing, passing is another, of course, but Navarro is clearly quicker than Tiger Harder. Is the pass going to come down into turn 7? Showed a wheel, did Navarro to Harder, but not quite this time around, but he's climbing all over the rear end of that Calyx on the forward chassis. Is the number 11. It's not going to be done into this corner here. Really tricky to get passes done into the slowest section of the track. Really technical section. Hard braking zone into the left-hander at turn 9. Then a little squirt of the gas to come up the hill, flick it right into turn 10, and then it opens back up through 11 and 12, the S's. And then, of course, the turn 13 Parabolica on the right-hand side of the tyre for an eternity. But Jorge Navarro, as Chris says, it's a matter of if and not when, it looks like, for the forward rider to get past Tiger Harder, the Japanese rider. Looks like he's got a nice run out of there as the number 11, and with 4 laps to go, he's got plenty of time to make a pass to claim a podium here as the number 11, and he's got into the slipstream nicely. He's on the outside, but we saw Cassidy make a move there on Tiger Harder. Is it going to happen into turn 1 this time around? Tiger Harder just holds his line for now, but Jorge Navarro is going to get the cutback, is he? As the two come into close combat, but the number 11 has got it done. Nicely done from Jorge Navarro.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. I thought turn 1 was coming. You saw him making the move on the outside. I thought Hada had actually defended it quite well to get the block in there, but Navarro on the cutback, as you said, and now he's already starting to open up a bit of a gap to Hada. So Hada might have to look a little bit backwards. I'm just checking the time screens. It's 6 seconds more or less to Roberto Garcia. I think he should be okay. There won't be enough time, so he can hold on to P4. Will he have enough to fight with Navarro for P3? Not on current pace, but if he can just capitalize on any potential mistake from the Ford Racing rider, then he is very much back in here. As we watch the replay of that move, the number 11 and Navarro tried it up the outside, force Hada wide, and then just on the cutback, that's experience on show from Jorge Navarro.
Yeah, great overtake from Jorge Navarro. Knew exactly what he was doing there. Would have preferred the inside line, of course. Harder made it as difficult as he possibly could for the Spaniard to get past. But yeah, Navarro just using his wealth of experience there to get past the Japanese rider. And he's on his way. He was quicker by over a second last time than Eric Fernandez in second place. So not long left in this race, of course. It's going to be interesting to see what the gap is over the line between Eric Fernandez and Jorge Navarro. But I don't think Jorge Navarro is going to settle for third place here. He fancies 20 points instead of 16 points. But as I say, and as I say that, is that your race leader, Mateo Cassidy?
It isn't.
No, it isn't. It's Eric Fernandez.
It's Eric Fernandez out of second place. So there you go. Just as you said, Eric Fernandez is down. Jorge Navarro is back into up into second place. Eric Fernandez rejoins in 4th position, as I think I just saw something flying off his bike. Whoa, we'll get the replay there. What has gone wrong for Eric Fernandez? He's just slid out of contention here around the last right-hander. Oh, he's just fallen victim to the conditions. It looks like we only see the post crash there at the end of it. We don't see how he went down exactly. He is rejoined in P7. And that gives even more of a gap now to Mattia Cassidy out front. But disaster for Fernandez. He was on for a maiden podium in the class, and he was cruising as well. He was very comfortable, but just goes to show how difficult it is to ride in these conditions. We're hopefully assuming it is drying up a little bit, but that just goes to show how dangerous it is out there to keep aboard.
Yeah, around the final corner, Fernandez saw the yellow and briefly thought that it might have been Mateo Cassidy race leader, but it's not. Of course, you can see Mateo Cassidy on track, and you can see here the racetrack is really drying quickly here in Estoril when the sun is out. As we pan back to the fight, which is now for 4th place, Alberto Sura, Roberto Garcia, Mattia Rato on the number 13. A great battle unfolding for 4th place. If you'd have offered 4th place or a top 5 to Sura and Garcia before the race, I think they'd have snapped your hand off from where they were on the grid. So a great ride from Alberto Sura and Roberto Garcia, top 2 from last time out, and Rato sniffs a good result up into P4. They're way off Tiger Harder, so unless anything happens in front of them, it's not going to be a podium in race 1, but good experience gained and a great race nonetheless from these 3 riders, especially Sura and Garcia. We did mention how tricky the conditions were around the final corner, and of course as conditions are drying up, the riders are going to try and push a little bit more. Of course Garcia, who unfortunately fell, not Garcia, Fernandez, who unfortunately fell, just pushing potentially a little bit too hard. We didn't quite see how it started, but Fernandez is still going to pick up top 10 place. So with 2 laps to go, Cassidy leading by 11 seconds, Navarro up into 2nd place, Harder in 3rd, and then a big gap to this gaggle of riders, this trio who are fighting out for P4.
Yeah, crucial points on offer here in P4 as well in terms of the championship. Cassidy is your runaway leader, and 25 points are on offer for him, but Alberto Sura came into this as the race winner from Misano, and de facto championship leader. Now he's fighting for 4th position, so that would tie both of them up. But Roberto Garcia here and Mattia Ratto, I don't think they're just going to let him have P4. Is that a bike on the left-hand side? I saw it there. But big points on offer here. Could be the championship lead being decided as we prepare for Catalunya in the next round. Well, there is a second race, of course, to come first. So all crucial points. Alberto Sura will be able to hold off the number 13 of Mattia Ratto. Does Roberto Garcia have anything left in the tank over this last lap and a half either?
Yeah, Ratto was a podium finisher here back in 2022, a P3. He's potentially not going to stand on the podium, but he's got good experience around here as Ratto is a couple of top 5 last year as well. So he goes well around Estoril, and he's proven that exactly here on the number 13. He's swarming all over the rear end of Sura. Is he going to make a move up into turn 9, the left-hander of the tight and twisty section of 9 and 10? Not quite this time around, but Sura's got a job on his hands here to try and hold on to P4. And as things stand, it would mean that Casadei moves level on points in the championship with the number 67. Teammates, of course, and the Team Chiatti Boscosuro machines. As Casadei then down into turn 1 for the final time in race 1. He's got a comfortable advantage over Jorge Navarro, more or less 11 seconds. Here it is, the gap. Jorge Navarro up into P2, and he's got a comfortable gap to Tiger Hardo. In turn, has a comfortable gap in P3. So it looks like your podium places are set, and we'll concentrate on this battle for P4 that's raging on.
Yeah, Alberto Sura then, this will tie him, well, he's already championship lead, but this will keep him tied at the top for the championship lead if he can maintain P4 here. Number 13 then of Mattia Ratto is just ahead of Roberto Garcia. Garcia also involved in the championship battle. I think it was 7 points behind Sura and Casadei. So he'll be looking to pick off 1 or 2 of the riders ahead of him as he maintains his championship charge here in Estoril. So Alberto Sura leading Ratto with Garcia in 3rd coming around the left-handers.
Yeah, Garcia just taking a quick look over his shoulder there on the exit of turn 3. He's not going to see anyone behind him. They've got a big gap back to the chasing pack. Alberto Ferrandez it is in 7th place, 5 seconds down the road. But that look over the shoulder indicated Garcia potentially doesn't have quite enough to challenge for P4 or P5 here. But he's going to have a box office seat in the battle between Sura and Ratto. Ratto climbing all over the back of the number 67. Is he going to make a move down into turn 7? He's late on the brakes. He's close, but not close enough for the number 13 to get past. But now, opportunity knocks. Turns 8. This is the right-hander. You're not going to make a move here, but you can set one up down into turns 9. He's going to make a move, a lunge. I think he is. That's going to be close, but not quite enough for the number 13.
That's a brave move to try through the chicanes there, the right to left to right again, because that is a tricky part of the circuit. But here is your race winner, Mattia Casadei, for the first time in the Moto2 European Championship.
Yeah, fantastic stuff from Casadei. Dominant victory here in race 1 of 2 in Estoril. A winner by well over 10 seconds. Jorge Navarro is going to get his first podium.
Sura is down. I think we've lost a rider there because looking at the battle for 4th, I think maybe I'm mistaken. Excuse me, I hard skipped a beat, but Alberto Sura holds on to 4th place. My apologies, Elliot.
All good, Chris, all good. Sura does indeed hold on to 4th place, with Ratto and Garcia just behind him. So Ratto wasn't quite able to make a move on Sura in the final few corners. A good job done from those 4 riders in P4, P5 and P6, but absolutely outstanding. Picture perfect from Mattia Casadei. 12.6 seconds he was clear of Jorge Navarro. Would have been a little bit closer had Navarro not taken avoiding action from the Ivo Lopez crash, but absolutely no one was in the same league as Mattia Casadei today, and Chris will be heading down to Parc Ferme very shortly to speak with the Italian.
Yeah, absolutely. That tees up the second race quite nicely as well. As you mentioned, Navarro's shown he has the pace to actually go here with Mattia Casadei. He just did not get the start and did get tied up in that crash. Ivo Lopez as well, he'll get another chance later in the day to give the home fans a dream podium. But it's all about this rider, Mattia Casadei. Brilliant win. That puts him atop the championship standings alongside Alberto Sura.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that if your name is Casadei. P1 on Saturday, a first pole in the class. Feeling confident, said he wasn't feeling perfect, so I'm intrigued to see if he is feeling perfect, what he could have done, but doesn't get much more perfect than that for Matteo Casadei. Jorge Navarro, a great ride from the Spaniard, the experienced Spaniard, of course, on that forward chassis. You can see there the rear end slightly different. Struggling in the Moto2 World Championship of forward to get the results they're hoping for, so it's good to have riders like Jorge Navarro doing some races in the European Moto2 Championship to get some more data on board as they try and close the gap to the Boscoscuro and Calix machines. And talking of Calix machines, Tiger, Harder, 3 different manufacturers, chassis manufacturers, I should say, on the podium here in the Moto2 European Championship Race 1. Tiger Harder on the 23 equals his personal best results, as we mentioned at the top of the show. P3 in Aragon 2021 was his best result, and he's just equalled it here with a P3 in Estoril in tricky conditions. Led the race, of course, on the opening lap, and then was passed by Casadei. We're going to get a replay of it here, which ended up being the race-winning overtake. Tucked behind the bubble, down the near as makes no difference. 1 kilometre long, home straight here in Estoril, and the number 40 breezes past the number 23. Hard on the anchors down into turn 1, the tight right-hander to start the lap here at the Circuito de Estoril. And from there, Casadei never looked back, and the others pretty much didn't see where he went. Pulled the pin, was at least a second quicker really than the chasing pack throughout the race. No one able to keep tabs on Casadei, and you'd have to say in similar conditions, if the conditions do stay around this afternoon, then he's going to be a very, very hard rider to beat, is Casadei. And just looking out the commentary box window, the clouds are starting to disperse. Chris is hot-footing his way down to Parc Ferme. You can see him there in the background getting ready to speak to Matteo Casadei. Just see how the conditions are when Chris gets back up to the box. But we could see a dry line appearing, so I didn't think we'd be seeing that today, but potentially, I say with caution, that later on today for the Moto2 race in a couple of hours time might be a little bit drier. Who knows, we'll see. Matteo Casadei then getting a hero's welcome down in Parc Ferme. Fantastic stuff from Casadei, as we mentioned. Qualified on the front row, just missed out on the podium in Misano in his first start in the Moto2 European Championship. But that was a really, really classy ride. Doesn't get any better than that for Matteo Casadei, your current Moto E World Champion and Championship leader. 23 podiums over in the Moto E World Championship, and that's his first in the Moto2 European Championship. So fantastic stuff from Matteo Casadei. Of course, had 7 races in Moto2 last year as well, as you would have seen, from Japan to Valencia. Didn't manage to quite get a top 20 in the closing stages of 2023 to Casadei, but plenty more experience to be gained this season. And maybe in the future we'll be seeing him on the World Championship grid in Moto2. Again, the 24-year-old. Jorge Navarro celebrating with his team, the 28-year-old Spaniards. We saw him last time out with the Spanish GP in RF, of course, not the weekend he would have been hoping for. A couple of technical issues early on in the weekend. Picked up an 18th place on Sunday in the race. But a good job done from Jorge Navarro, coming from the second row of the grids in tricky conditions. He'll be pleased with his team, the forward squad happy with the podium, and they'll be raring to go again. It'll be interesting what Navarro can do, actually. If he can get a little bit of a better start and not get mired in the pack in sort of 5th and 6th place and having to come through some riders. So it's going to be your standard turn 1 for Matteo Casadei, looking for a potential mistake or close crash, but no sort. But we can now go down to Parc Ferme. Chris is with the race winner, Matteo Casadei.
Matteo, absolutely superb performance. Just how much does that mean to you?
I'm very happy. After yesterday's pole position, I crashed in the last lap and I destroyed a little bit the bike. The guys work all the night and make a fantastic job, and this victory is for us because give me a special bike, a special emotion, my first win here, and I'm very happy.
And for all your fans listening in Italy?
Yeah, for all my fans in Italy, my family. Sono molto contento per questa vittoria, la dedico a tutto il team perché ieri dopo la pole sono caduto, ho distrutto la moto e hanno lavorato tutta notte per mettermela a posto e hanno fatto un fantastico lavoro. Questa vittoria è per loro e per tutte le persone che mi permettono di realizzare questo traguardo e sogno. Grazie.
Grazie.
Good to hear from Matteo Casadei, and this is how we won race 1 or 2 here in Estoril. Starting from pole position, he wasn't going to get the whole shot because that honour went the way of the 23 of Tiger Harder. A great launch from the middle of the front row from the Japanese rider, and he led around lap 1, tentative stuff in the opening few laps as the riders got used to conditions out there here in Estoril. A rainy day in Estoril. The rain had stopped though for these riders. This was the opening lap. Tiger leading away from Casadei. 21 of Eduardo Montero getting a good start, but his race wouldn't last long. Eric Fernandez on the 4, climbing his way up the pack in the early exchanges. A good opening few laps from Eric Fernandez, but he too would suffer a crash a little bit later on. This ended up being the race-winning move from Casadei, powering down the long front straight here in Estoril, round the outside, hard on the anchors, got his Boscoscuro stopped, and into the lead he went. That was Montero crashing down at turn 9, easily done in these conditions. This was Portuguese home hero Ivo Lopez, unfortunately crashing soon after at Curva VIP at turn 4. Both riders were okay, and this was the battle that raged on for ended up being P2. This was for P3. Jorge Navarro getting the advantage over Tiger Harder, and at the final corner with just a few laps to go, Eric Fernandez crashed out of second place, handing P2 to the number 11 of Jorge Navarro. But by this point, the race winner, Matteo Casadei, was 11 seconds clear of the chasing pack. Jorge Navarro taking a comfortable second place in the end for the forward team, and Tiger Harder completing the podium. His equal best result in third place. But the race belonged to Matteo Casadei, ahead of another race that's coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. Can anyone catch the Italian? We'll find out in a few hours' time. As always, time for the podium celebrations to take place. 3 different nationalities on the podium. That's great to see. Italy, Spain and Japan, as Tiger Harder makes his way onto the podium. A good ride from the Japanese rider. Got the whole shot, was leading on lap 1 and eventually took a podium, which he'll be very pleased with indeed. And Jorge Navarro standing on the podium.
Jorge Navarro.
His last podium was in World Supersport last year with a P3 in Portimao, so he's 1 place higher than he was over in the Algarve last season. Just a few hours north of that, of course, here in Estoril. But your race winner, Matteo Casadei, for the first time in the Moto2 European Championship. I'm sure they packed enough room in their suitcases to take a couple of trophies home. There's the Team Chiatti Boscoscuro. Team personnel collecting the trophy. As I say, Tiger Harder back on the podium for the Japanese rider. A welcome return to the podium, his first since 2021 in this class. Good job from the Japanese. Then P2 will go the way of Jorge Navarro. He's had a few trophies from this paddock in years gone by, between 2010 and 2014. He's not had one for roughly 10 years, but Jorge Navarro back in this paddock for the first time in a while. And in his first race back, he's standing on the podium. And talking of first times, as I say, the first victory potentially of many this season for Matteo Casadei. Just missed out back in Misano on home turf, but he's gone a few places better as we get set for the Italian national anthem.
E agora avançamos para Prosecco.
The Italian national anthem doesn't get old, does it? The great national anthem rings around the Circuito de Estoril. The Prosecco sprayed. They won't be having a drink or too much of it anyway, because they've got a job to do a little bit later on. You can see they were a little bit tempted. Tiger Harders were going to EM, why not? So does Mattia Casadei. You've got to enjoy the moment, and then they'll go debrief with their teams, see what they can improve. I'm sure for Casadei not too much, or he'll be, well, for his companion's sake anyway, it won't be too much he can improve on, because he can improve. Then that signals danger for the rest of the riders as they pose for the photo, and then they'll go off and get ready, get some lunch on board, and get ready for race 2 a little bit later on. Coming up, the Junior GP race. The sole Junior GP race here in Estoril. But here's confirmation of your final results then. Mattia Casadei, dominant race win, 12 seconds clear of Jorge Navarro in second place, who in turn was 5 seconds clear of Tiger Harder in third place. Sura from P15 on the grid was P4. Mattia Rato and Roberto Garcia close for company in 5th and 6th. Alberto Fernandez, Eric Fernandez inside the top 10. Une Adre of Spain completing that. Gimber, Mongiardo, Kaito Toba, Lorenzo Felon and Mattia Volpi were your final point scorers. Mongiardo was close to the podium in Misano. No such luck this time around. Shannon Inter, P18, and a couple of crashes there. Ivo Lopez we saw going down at turn 4, the home hero, the reigning Spanish Superbike champion. Unfortunate for him as he was closing on a podium. Harrison Voigt a crasher, unfortunately, for the Australian. Gianpaolo Di Vittori and Charles Ubli as well. Unfortunately, not finishing race 1 here in Estoril in the Moto2 European Championship. Here is what it does then for the championship standings. Level on points of the two teammates, Mattia Casadei and Alberto Sura, 38 apiece heading into race 2. Garcia in third place, drops 1 position, but he's only 8 points off the top. Alberto Fernandez, Tiger Hari inside the top 5. Jorge Navarro with his P2 finish, clocks 20 points and is up into 6th place in the championship. As I mentioned, Mongiardo had a good ride out in Misano, but a disappointing result there. He slips to P10. Mattia Rato getting his first points of the season on board as well with 11 with a P5 finish, and Gimber, Lorenzo Felon, Harrison Voigt, no points scored for the Australian, unfortunately. And Mattia Volpi, P18 with the sole point so far this season for the Italian. We'll see if he and others can add to that tally a little bit later on for race 2. In the meantime, though, we're just getting ready for Junior GP action. Always a fantastic race in the Junior GP class. Then we've got race 2 of European Talent Cup coming your way. Then it's Moto2 race 2. And then our bumper day concludes with the stock race in a few hours' time. Can anyone catch Mattia Casadei? Can anyone close the gap to the number 40? A perfect ride from the Italian on the Boscuro machine. Slow-mo shots of his race-winning overtake around the outside just as they started lap 2. And this was the winning overtake, of course, on the 23 of Tiger Harder. Chris expertly done around the outsides, and then we were wondering, weren't we, if anyone was going to be able to keep tabs on Mattia Casadei, and it ended up being a firm no.
No, you hit the nail on the head there. But brilliant performance from Casadei, without a doubt, the best rider in race 1 here. You can look what it means to him there. I think that's a big monkey off his back more than anything. He comes into this as the Moto2 World Champion, you know? So there's pressure involved with that. A P4 Misano, it didn't quite go his way on home turf, but trip over to Portugal has proven to be just what he needed. P1 today. And I've got a little fun fact for you. So a little pop quiz for you, Elliot, before we leave Moto2 until the second race. The last 4 years, since 2019, we've had back-to-back winners in Estoril. We've had Senna Aegis, Jari Montella, Lucas Tulovic, but who were the last 2 riders in 2019? Who do you think? The last time we didn't see back-to-back winners in Moto2.
Oh, now you're testing me. 2019.
I should also mention, sorry, Fermin Aldeguer, MotoGP bound Fermin Aldeguer, also part of them.
Yari Montoya, maybe one of them.
No, he was a back-to-back winner. I'll tell you what.
Edgar Pons.
Have a little think about it. You guys at home have a little think about it too, and come back for Moto2, and I'll reveal the answer later in the afternoon. Okay?
There you go. Then some homework for the fans at home, and some homework for me as well. Clearly, not knowing the answer to that one. We're a few minutes away from the start of the Junior GP race.